Hello everyone. I hope and I pray that you are well. This past week, Dr. Bonnie Henry announced that we are officially facing the second wave of this pandemic here in BC. And so today, I just want to update you on some of our COVID safety measures and kind of where we're at as a church. But before I do that, I just want to kind of remind us to frame this pandemic, but also our very lives within God's providence. And we have seen God's hand, even in the midst of some pretty difficult circumstances these past 6 months. And so we're reminded that the Heidelberg Catechism says that God's providence is his almighty and ever-present power, whereby as with his hand, he still upholds heaven and earth and all creatures. And so one such providence that we've seen is in the very fact that we have a COVID safety team, which consists of Elaine and Lorraine and Jody, and they've helped us form some helpful guidelines for meeting safely, and we're grateful for that. And another such providence of God is you, the congregation. I'm thankful for your cooperation over these past months. We've had to face a number of adjustments. The trendy term, of course, is pivot, and we've had to pivot, and so thank you for pivoting so well from in-person worship to recorded worship 1 week, and then to partnering with Zion Baptist, and then back to kind of half in-person, half live streaming worship, and that's just to talk about some of the shifts and changes we've made in worship. A lot of ministries have had to adjust, and some are still trying to find out how they will best adjust for these COVID times. So thank you for your cooperation and flexibility. At our classes meeting this past week, a Zoom meeting, of course, a colleague of mine, another minister, described angry congregants bursting into the church office. And one person burst into the church office because they felt that the church was taking COVID way too seriously. Another erupted into the church office because they felt the church wasn't taking COVID seriously enough. Right? And there is a lot of emotion. There's a lot of emotions for you too. These aren't easy times. But again, I think by God's providence, I'm grateful that I personally and we collectively as leaders haven't had to face the brunt of your anger. God's providence has been evident also, I think, in our church council. Our council has provided, I think, safe and careful and also calm and a confident approach with the measures that we have taken. And further, the work that we've been able to do has seemed, for the most part, seamless due to the kind of behind-the-scenes work of people like Andrew and Megan and Brad too, early on especially. Those are evidences of God's providence. And we also want you to know that we respect each of you. And we trust that you are doing what you need to do, what's necessary for yourself and for your family to keep safe. And we respect that. And we're not going to try to coerce you into doing one thing or another. We just want to give you your space, but sometimes we simply miss you. And while the caseload in the north is still relatively low, we continue to monitor as a church how we should operate to keep people safe. So in worship, we're going to continue to stick to just singing 4 songs. And we're going to continue to follow provincial guidelines which limit attendance here in this space for worship to 50 people. And we're going to continue to emphasize 2-meter distancing throughout the whole building. And in the sanctuary, you still know that there's the yellow tape blocking off some people's favorite pews. We apologize, but that's just how it is. And we just thank you for continuing to respect this space. And to book and use the church as a church group, please continue to contact Megan. She's going to direct you to our COVID safety team and to our COVID guidelines, which you can also find on our church website. Megan reminded me this morning that the BC CDC Guidelines for faith communities in our province right? So these are recommendations from the public health officials. They consider churches to be, in their words, pillars of strength in communities. And continuing to provide religious services is encouraged at this time. So it's important for us to know that as a church too. And also the importance in that document, the importance of singing is acknowledged and affirmed, right? And so we just reflect on what a blessing it is to be living in BC at such a time as this. And this too, we can see as a providence from God. Mask wearing, we've seen this on the increase even in our area. Mask wearing in indoor spaces, it's not mandatory in our province. Still, when 2-meter distancing can't be maintained, masks, they're a good option. And so we've seen at church for worship services, more people choosing to wear masks when arriving at worship, right, when they're in the kind of tighter spaces of entering and going through the exits and entryway. Until they've kind of come to the safety of their own spaced pews, and then some choose to take them off. Some choose to wear masks throughout the service. Again, we respect your right to do that. One of the bigger challenges, as you know, temperatures cool off, as there was a little snow last night. A challenge is kind of still this ongoing hunger for fellowship. Both before and after the worship services especially. And people, we are like magnets to each other in that fellowship hall, right? And so you might start at 2 meters apart, but you know, as you watch people, you know, over time, people get closer and closer because we just forget. And so we're just going to encourage you, if you're going to fellowship after church inside, and you're going to be closer than 2 meters, mask wearing is something that we would encourage you to consider. Again, we just want to thank you for your support and for your prayers, and we thank God for his providence. And as I close, I just want to read what the Heidelberg Catechism has to say about God's providence. It asks this question: what does it benefit us to know that God has created all things and still upholds them by his providence? And here's the answer. We can be patient in adversity, thankful in prosperity, and with a view to the future, we can have a firm confidence in our faithful God and Father that no creature shall separate us from his love. For all creatures are so completely in his hand that without his will, they cannot so much as move. Friends in Christ, may the providence of God sustain you, and may the peace of Christ be with you all.